Distinguished senators, please take your seats. Distinguished Senator Musa, can you allow Senator Gojo to take his seat? Distinguished Senator Musa, can you allow Senator Gojo to take his seat? Sergeant at Arms, can you allow Senator Almakura to take his seat? Distinguished Senator Issa Jibrin, can you allow His Excellency, the Deputy Governor-elect, Senator Deji Eremia Bio Barakuma, to take his seat? Distinguished senators, please take your seat. Senator Lau, please can you leave my distinguished sister alone? Distinguished Senator Yusuf, can you leave distinguished Senator? Can you leave our Chairman of Foreign Affairs alone, please?
You deserve to be there.
Distinguished Senator Ifeanyi Uba, the chamber is waiting for you. And the issue of border is not on consideration. Please allow distinguished Senator Fada Husu to take his seat. Mr. President, the chamber is ready for you when you are ready, when you are set. Distinguished Senator Inachi, take your seat. Distinguished Senator D.T. Suswan, you are not on your seat. Thank you, distinguished Senator Suswan.
Votes and proceedings. Votes and proceedings. Page 617. Page 618. Page 619. Page 620. Page 621. Page 622. Distinguished Senator Degi Biyo Barakuma, His Excellency Belsa.
His Excellency, the President of the Senate and distinguished colleagues, I rise with profound respect and humility, move the motion that the votes and proceedings of Thursday, 12 December 2019, as recorded and presented, be adopted by the Senate. I so move.
Distinguished Senator Binos Yaro.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion that the votes and proceedings of Thursday, 12 December be approved. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the votes and proceedings of Thursday, 12 December 2019 be approved, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The votes and proceedings of Thursday, 12 December 2019 is hereby approved. Letter from Mr. President. Dear distinguished Senate President, confirmation of 2 additional nominees as members of National Hajj Commission of Nigeria. Pursuant to Section 3, subsection 1D, 2 and 3 of the National Hajj Commission of Nigeria, NACON Act 2006, I am pleased to forward for confirmation by the Senate 2 additional nominees as members of the National Hajj Commission. The distinguished Senate may wish to recall that I recently sent 16 nominees to be considered by the Senate for appointment as members of National Hajj Commission of Nigeria. At that time, I indicated that names of the remaining nominees will be conveyed to the Senate once the ongoing consultations were concluded. Having now concluded those consultations, I hereby request for the confirmation by the Senate of the appointment of the following 2 additional nominees as members of the National Hajj Commission of Nigeria, namely A. Dr. Bala Muhammad as the representative of Jamaat al-Nasr al-Islam, and B. Mr. Yusuf Chinedozi Nwoha as the representative of the Nigerian Spring Council for Islamic Affairs. Please accept, distinguished Senate President, the assurances of my highest consideration. Yours sincerely, Muhammadu Buhari. Letter from Mr. President. Dear distinguished Senate President, appointment of chairman and members of National Assembly Service Commission. Further to your letters, NAS, /9th, /S, /SP, /PRE, /1, NASC, /06, /11, /19, dated 6 November 2019, approval for your nominations for the appointment of chairman and commissioners of the National Assembly Service Commission as follows. Engineer Ahmed Kadi Amshi, chairman, Yobe, Northeast. Babagana Modu, member, Borno, Northeast. Senator Abubakar Tutare, member, Taraba, Northeast. Hakim Akamo, member, Lagos, Southwest. Tunrayo Akintomide, member, Ondo, Southwest. Atano Mayo Francis, Delta, South-South. Engineer Abasi Etuk, member, Akwa Ibom, South-South. Honorable Yaminu Yusuf Shinkafi, member, Zamfara, Northwest. Sani Saidu Kazaure, member, Jigawa, Northwest. Senator Julius Ucha, member, Ebonyi, Southeast. Nnamdi Anyehe, member, Imo, Southeast. Awalu Aliyu Ohindase, member, Kogi, North Central. Maazu Ishaq, member, Nasarawa, North Central. Please accept the single Senate President the assurances of my highest consideration. Yours sincerely, Muhammadu Buhari. Distinguished colleagues, today is the birthday of the Deputy Minority Leader, very distinguished Senator Emmanuel Bacha. On behalf of the Senate, I wish our distinguished colleague a happy birthday, long life, prosperity, and many more years of service to our fatherland. Congratulations, Deputy Minority Leader. And they are looking different today. I wish to acknowledge the presence of members of the Parliament, National Union of Bauchi State Students, Ahmad Bello University, Zaria, Kaduna State, who are in the gallery to observe Senate proceedings today. You are welcome. I wish you a very fruitful observation of Senate proceedings. You may sit down, please. Petitions. Leader of the Senate. Point of order, Senator Clifford Odia.
Mr. President, my very distinguished colleagues, I'm starting on the 53.6. You permit me, Mr. President, I will read.
Which order is that? Okay, 53.6. Okay, go ahead, please.
Order 53.6. It shall be out of order to attempt to reconsider any specific question upon which the Senate has come to a conclusion during the current session, except upon a substantive motion for rescission. Mr. President, this motion is in respect of our earlier decisions on the payment made to Kogi State government for jobs executed on behalf of the federal government. We have some differences, and this motion intends to reconcile that differences. And if you permit, I will go into to the main motion.
Okay. Go ahead.
Mr. President, my very distinguished colleagues, this motion is in respect of the request for the resolution of the National Assembly for the issuance of 10 billion and 69 million promissory notes to Kogi State government under the promissory note program, and a bond issuance to settle inherited local debts and contractual obligations of the federal government. Refund to states for projects executed on behalf of the federal government. Senate will recall that on Wednesday, November 13, 2019, the Senate at this plenary approved the request of Mr. President requesting for the issuance of the said amount to Kogi State. Senate observed that the Senate only approved the figure in the title of the letter, whether the exact amount was contained in the body of the letter. Senate is also aware that the House of Representatives approved total amount of 10 billion 69 million 692,410 naira 15 kobo, whether the Senate only approved 10 billion and 69 million naira, leaving a balance of 692,410 naira 15 kobo. The Senate accordingly resolved that the Senate resigned its decision and approved the correct amount of 10 billion 69 million 692,410 naira 15 kobo as contained in the letter of Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to the Senate. I so move, Mr. President.
Okay, distinguished colleagues, before somebody seconds it and I put the question, let me also explain a little bit of what the chairman of our Committee on Foreign Loan and Debt. The letter from Mr. President conveying the request for the approval for Kogi State of the said sum has two issues. On the heading is 10.069 billion. In the body, inside the letter itself, that is on the second page of the letter, item 6, the full, just hold on, the full amount reads 10 billion 69 million 692,041 naira 15 kobo. So on the front page it was rounded. Inside the letter it was full up to the kobo. We took, in the Senate, we took what was on the on page 1, the rounded figure. The House passed the one that is inside, and in fact that was what we were supposed to do as well, because that is the full amount. So the essence of his order is to just correct the amount to the full amount requested. With this, I will call for someone to second. Senator, very distinguished Senator Obinna Ogba.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Obinna Ogba. I represent Ebonyi, Central Ebonyi State. Mr. President, I rise to second the motion ably moved by distinguished Senator Clifford Odia. The motion, Mr. President, I have to be protected. I am moved.
Senator Obinna Ogba, you are fully and completely protected.
Distinguished colleagues, I rise to move the motion, to second the motion as ably moved by distinguished Senator Clifford Odia. I so second, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that we rescind our earlier decision on the rounded or estimated figure to the full figure requested by Mr. President. Say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Thank you very much, distinguished colleague. Senator Joy Thompson Sakibo, you are raising your hand. Did you want to second or something?
Your Excellency, I wanted to second the motion and it didn't see my hands. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Point of order, Senator Olubimi Adetumbi.
Distinguished President, colleagues, I come under Order 42 and 52. With your permission, I'll read.
Please, go ahead.
The matter for discussion shall, if possible, be referred to the President of the Senate before commencement of the day's sitting, and the President of the Senate shall refuse to allow the claim unless he is satisfied that the matter is definite and urgent. And under 52 is seeking to dispense a notice for immediate raising of this issue. Mr. President, I was with you to raise the issue of the visa on arrival policy of the federal government and matters arising thereof.
Okay, you heard, we discussed on this, but you know the permission to allow you to go ahead with motion goes beyond me. We need at least the endorsement of 1/5 of senators present. So I'll put the question. Those in favor of his motion that he presents the motion under Orders 42-52 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Present your motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. This motion is on the urgent need to seek domestication of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement by an act of the National Assembly prior to the implementation of the proposed visa on arrival for citizens of African countries as recently directed by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the Nigerian Immigration Service, NIS. The Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria notes that on the 12th of December 2019, it was reported by the Daily Trust newspaper that the Nigerian Immigration Service says that the federal government has approved that all Africans could come into Nigeria without visa from January 2020. Further notes that this visa on arrival VOA policy is in furtherance of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement that was signed by Nigeria sometime during July 2019. Aware that both Section 12 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as altered and the treaties making procedure, etc. Act 1993 requires that as a prerequisite, the National Assembly ought to enact legislation for the purpose of giving effect to all treaties after their ratification by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria or other members of the executive arm of government of Nigeria. Concerned that neither the Federal Executive Council nor a member of the National Assembly has yet submitted to the National Assembly a bill for domestication to enable effect to be said African Continental Free Trade Agreement, which is necessary prerequisite before its implementation. Therefore, it is premature, constitutionally and legally impossible for the provisions of the said agreement to have any effect within the territory of Nigeria. Cognizant that the National Assembly has not delegated its powers to enact legislation for domestication of international treaties and agreements as prescribed under Section 12 of the 1999 Constitution to either the President of the Federal Republic or to the Nigerian Immigration Service or to any other agency or official of the executive arm of government, observes that the Presidential Executive Directive and the Nigerian Immigration Service that all Africans could come to Nigeria without visa requires compliance with Section 12 of the 1999 Constitution. Worried that the national security of Nigeria in the context of the current insurgency and terrorist challenges of Boko Haram could be jeopardized if the said proposed 2020 visa on arrival policy of the NIS. Accordingly, the Senate resolves to invite the Comptroller General of the Nigerian Immigration Service, NIS, to appear before the Senate Committee on Interior, Judiciary and Legal Matters to inform the Senate on the technical, logistics, legal and constitutional issues that are available and required for compliance before the implementation of the said visa on arrival policy. 2, to invite the Attorney General of the Federation and the Honorable Minister of Justice to submit a copy of the executive bill on the said agreement and all the subsidiary legislations that to be published in the Federal Gazette within 2 weeks. Finally, the Senate Committees of Interior, Judiciary and Legal Matters to report back to the Senate ASAP, and for the Senate to transmit the above resolutions to the House of Representatives for concurrence. Mr. President, I so submit.
Senator Sirajuddin Ajibola Basiru.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Dr. Sirajuddin Ajibola Bashiru. I represent the people of Osun Central Senatorial District. I stand up to second the motion, ably moved, and just by way of adoption, the motion is ably supported by Treaties-Making Procedure ETC Act of 1983, particularly Section 3, which categorizes.
We have no observation in our standing orders. You can raise a point of order. Continue, Senator Sirajuddin.
Section 3 made categorization of the kind of treaties, and the category 1 is what is referred to as lawmaking treaties. And these are defined to be bill agreements, constituting rules which govern interstate relationship and cooperation in any area of endeavor, and which have the effect of altering or modifying existing legislation, or which affect the legislative powers of the National Assembly. The nature of the treaty that the subject matter of the motion is a lawmaking treatise. And by subsection 2, paragraph A states that paragraph A of section 1 of the section need to be enacted into law. So it's a mandatory requirement that treaty of such nature should be enacted into law. And on that note, I second the motion ably moved by Senator Adetunbi of Ekiti. Thank you.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, my distinguished colleagues. I want to fully join my very good friend Adetunbi to support that this policy be domesticated. In fact, Mr. President, my colleagues, a lot of Nigerians were really worried. The reason for the worry was because of the spate of insecurity in Nigeria. And for us having known that part of the insecurity came from elements coming outside and into Nigeria, to now have a visa policy that doesn't seem to be properly regulated was giving people a lot of jitters, because what it now meant was that anybody could just come in and actually cause mayhem in Nigeria, not knowing this. So we really want to support distinguished Senator Adetunbi in this particular motion, that we domesticate it so that the do's and don'ts and cross the I's and dot the I's and cross the T's in how you can come into Nigeria. I know that Nigeria is the big brother of Africa, but sometimes if you try to be big brother when you don't have anything left, you may just find yourself with nothing. And we want to make sure that we take care of our citizens before we start taking care of the whole of Africa. And so I fully support this motion.
Senator Gabriel Suswam.
Mr. President, Gabriel Suswam, Benue Northeast. Mr. President, I was going to observe, but you say there's no observation in our rules. You allow him to continue because he was trying to adumbrate the motion, which our rules does not allow. So I was going to raise that what I was doing was not necessarily correct, but that is gone. Mr. President, let me join the mover of this motion and say that for me, Mr. President made a policy statement within the context of African head of state. I don't think that was intended to say that this policy was going to be implemented without the necessary amendment, because if we look at the Immigration Act, it is stated clearly the method of coming into this country. You must have visa before you come. We don't have a policy that allow us or allow other internationals to come into this country, get visa on arrival. So we must necessarily, as National Assembly, saddle with that responsibility, legislate on that before it is implemented. Otherwise, so I don't think it is any problem. He made a policy statement. It is now incumbent on him, as Mr. President, to also direct the necessary authorities. Let them bring the Immigration Act here for us to amend. When we amend it, we will now be able to input properly what we need to do and how that policy will be carried out. So for me, it's a policy meeting within the African head of state, and he feels that let us relax a little bit. It must and have to be legislated. And so I think his motion is in order, and that Mr. President should be urged to quickly send in the amendment to the Immigration Act so that we'll properly take the necessary action on it.
Senator Ibikule Amosu.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ibikule Amosu, I represent Ogun Central. Mr. President, let me join my other colleagues in supporting this motion. Mr. President, what this motion is trying to do is just to perfect what Mr. President has done. Clearly, Mr. President, since we have signed the AFTA, which I think was signed eventually towards the tail end of maybe June or July, I think the next thing to do is to domesticate it. But in that domestication, if the law-making body, as represented by the National Assembly, both the Senate and the Rep, if they do not look into the law itself, given vent to the presidential approval that has been given for visa on arrival, then all of us as a nation will be just open to what I call anybody just coming into this nation. Of course, this what we signed guarantees the free movement of persons. But in doing that, we, the lawmakers, must be given the opportunity to look into it and try to fine-tune gray areas. Because without doing it, there's nothing wrong with Mr. President going out there and saying something on behalf of all of us. But clearly, before it is perfected, the National Assembly should play its part, particularly those treaties that require legislation. So, Mr. President, without bedeviling this issue, I want to strongly support that we quickly ask the executive to bring a bill so that we can actually support the initiative that they are trying to put in place. This will aid trade, it will aid commerce, it will aid our economy, and by extension, Nigeria will be further developed. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Borojibu.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Borojibu Karunlov. I do agree with the speaker, particularly Senator Adetubi, who is the sponsor of this very important motion, that all that needs to be done in terms of legislation should be done before implementing this very, very commendable policy. This is part of what is happening, globally. It's what is in vogue, particularly countries that want to open their doors to investors and tourists. Saudi Arabia is beginning to operate this kind of policy. We've seen Dubai. Dubai has been, having this kind of policy, and you see how tourists go into Dubai. So several countries, it's what's in vogue now. It's what is in vogue. So while looking at the security angle, we should also remind ourselves that it's important we go in line with what is happening globally. Other countries are doing it and they are gaining a lot in terms of business influence to that country, those countries. Also tourist influence to those countries. So we should look at this perspective as well. Senator Amoson has emphasized that, so that's what I want to emphasize. It's a commendable policy. We should embrace it while making sure that all legislations that will allow that to be put in place should be, done. I so submit.
Senator Comrade Abba Patrick Moro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Senator Abba Moro, representing the good people of the Benue South Senatorial District. And Mr. President, I rise to support my friend Senator Adetunji on this very important motion. Mr. President, I think it is necessary for us to state here that when international agreements are entered into by Nigeria, they should be properly domesticated to give it the bite of legality and legitimacy. Mr. President, I think the visa aspect of this agreement needs to be looked into very closely and critically. Mr. President, we are aware that in recent years, a part of Nigeria, Embakasi, was ceded to Cameroon, and up to this moment, as required by law, no act of the National Assembly has been enacted to give it some level of legality. And today our people out there are in a quandary as to where they belong. So, Mr. President, I support this need for domestication. But, Mr. President, I want to raise this very critical point before we begin to debate on what may not be at issue. There are two clear things here. There is visa on arrival, and Mr. President, there is free visa. What Mr. President said recently that I know is free visa for Africans to enter Nigeria. Mr. President, visa on arrival is a policy that has been in place by the Nigerian Immigration Service since 2012. And that means that if for whatever reason you are unable to get visa from your country of origin, you can fill the necessary forms and get to the airport or port of entry and get your visa. And so clearly, Mr. President, what we are debating here is free entry visa for Africans as announced by Mr. President. And again, I think as part of the African Free Trade Arrangement, it needs an act of the National Assembly to back it up. I think we should take steps to do that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Betty Apiafi.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Betty Apiafi. I represent Rivers West Senatorial District. Mr. President, I'd like to take us back to when this African Free Trade Zone Treaty was to be signed and the reluctance of Nigeria not to sign this treaty. There are obviously a lot of reasons why we didn't sign this treaty. And when eventually the treaty was signed, this Senate debated extensively on this treaty and the need for the executive to immediately send the treaty to the Senate for domestication, or for us to even understand the document or the content of the treaty. The African Free Trade Zone Treaty is a treaty that will alter a lot of things in terms of the way we do business and Nigeria as a nation. And it is not a document I think we should take in piecemeals. And of course, again, in these days when we have situations where the government can take an executive order and just pass an executive order and things are done as per the executive order being as good as a law, it is dangerous for us to allow this process to continue. And I'd like to join my colleagues to commend the mover of this motion and to insist that the treaty, the entire document of the treaty be brought to the National Assembly for us to understand these documents and seek expertise advice on how to domesticate and, what we need to take out as portions of this treaty that may not be suitable for Nigeria. Thank you, Mr. President.
Is there anybody against the motion? We'll go to the prayers. To invite prayer 1, to invite the Controller General of the Nigerian Immigration Service to appear before Senate Committee on Interior, Judiciary and Legal Matters to inform the Senate on the technical, logistics, legal and constitutional issues that are available and required for compliance before implementation of the said visa on arrival policy. Those in favor of this prayer say aye. Amendment, Minority Leader.
Yeah, I think the amendment we want to propose is rather than invite the Controller General of Immigration to invite the Minister of Interior, who will now come with his, whenever, yes.
Seconder, the Deputy Chief Whip.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, Aliu Sabi Abdullahi, Niger North. I rise to second the amendment that the Minister of Interior instead of the Controller General. I so second.
Those in favor of prayer 1 as amended say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 2, to invite the Attorney General of the Federation and the Honorable Minister of Justice to submit a copy of an executive bill on the said agreement and other subsidiary legislation that are to be published in the Federal Gazette within 2 weeks. Those in favor of prayer 2 say aye. Those against say nay. Senator Adetumbi, please can you withdraw this prayer?
What is the prayer? The will of the plenary is supreme, and I abide by it.
I think he has withdrawn the prayer.
Which one is that?
So the third, I did the rule.
The President.
I only put the question. You still want it?
I will stand on prayer 1 and nothing more.
Thank you very much. So, distinguished colleague, thank you very much for the various interventions. I don't want your end of your prayers killed. I also agree with the position of Senator Betty Apiafi. There are other treaties and agreements that we have signed as a country. I think the Attorney General of the Federation should be able to forward those to the National Assembly for us to ratify them appropriately and give them the legal backing that they require. Leader of the Senate.
Thank you, Mr. President. My highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the first business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Francis Ali Makena on the agricultural processing zones establishment, etc. Bill 2019. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, agricultural processing zones establishment, etc. Bill 2019, SB 258, first reading.
Agricultural processing zones establishment, etc. Bill 2019, SB 258, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the second business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Muhammad Ali Ndume on the Nigerian Peace Corps establishment, etc. Bill 2019. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Nigerian Peace Corps establishment, etc. Bill 2019, SB 271, first reading.
Nigerian Peace Corps establishment, etc. Bill 2019, SB 271, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the third business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator James Manager on the Nigerian Maritime University Okere Nkoko establishment, etc. Bill 2019. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Nigerian Maritime University Okere Nkoko establishment, etc. Bill 2019, SB 272, first reading.
Nigerian Maritime University Okera Koko Establishment Executive Bill 2019, SB 272, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fourth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Solomon Olamilekong Adiola on the NDDC Act number 6, 2000 Amendment Bill 2019. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, NDDC Act number 6, 2000 Amendment Bill 2019, SB 273, first reading.
NDDC Act number 6, 2000, Amendment Bill 2019, SB 273, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fifth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Mohammed Sani Musa on the Federal Orthopedic Hospital Kuta Establishment Etc. Bill 2019. Mr. President, may we wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Federal Orthopedic Hospital Kuta Establishment Etc. Bill 2019, SB 279, first reading.
Federal Orthopedic Hospital Kuta Establishment Etc. Bill 2019, SB 279, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, the sixth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Basiru Sirajuddin Ajibola on the Federal College of Education Ila Orangung Bill 2019. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Federal College of Education Ila Orangung Bill 2019, SB 300, first reading.
Federal College of Education Ila Orangung Bill 2019, SB 300, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the seventh business of the day is the presentation of the report of the Joint Committee on Navy, Marine Transport and Finance on the investigation of illegal security activities by Ocean Marine Solutions Limited, OMSL, of the Secure Anchorage Area, SAA, of Lagos Port. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Sekibo George, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the Senate to receive the report.
Senator George Thompson Sekibo, CON-JP.
Mr. President of the Senate, my distinguished colleagues, I am Senator George Thompson Sekibo. I represent the Rivers East Electoral District. Mr. President, I rise to move that the Senate will receive the report of the Joint Committee on Navy, Marine Transport and Finance on the investigation of the illegal security activities by Ocean Marine Solutions Limited at the Secure Anchorage Area of Lagos Ports. I so move.
Any seconder? I need a seconder. Senator James Manager.
Thank you, Mr. President. My highly respected colleague, James Manager, Delta South. Mr. President, I rise to second the motion as moved by Senator George Thompson Sekibo, Chairman of the Joint Committee. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the Senate receives the report of the committee say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Please lay your report. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the first order of the day is a motion standing in my name on the executive communication from Mr. President Commander-in-Chief on the 2016 to 2018 external borrowing plan in accordance with Section 21 and 27 of the Debt Management Office Act. The distinguished senators will recall that the request of Mr. President Commander-in-Chief was read on Thursday, 28 November 2019. Mr. President, with your permission, I wish to move that the request be referred to the relevant committee for further legislative action. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The request of Mr. President is hereby referred to the Committee on Local and Foreign Debts and to report back in 2 weeks. Senator Odia, thank you. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the second order of the day is the second reading of the Federal Medical Center Rigasa, Kaduna State Establishment Etc. Bill 2019. The distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Tuesday, 19th November 2019. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Obasani to move the motion for the bill to be read the second time.
Senator James Manager, please don't disturb Senator Obin Naugba. Senator Dr. Obasani.
Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, my name is Ubasani, representing Kaduna Central. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, permit me to lead the debate on the bill for an act to establish the Federal Medical Center, Rigasa, Kaduna State. The bill was read the first time on Tuesday, 19 November 2019. This bill seeks to establish the Federal Medical Center, Rigasa, Kaduna State, and make provisions for its due management and administration. This bill was put together in response to the cries of my constituents, especially those in densely populated areas who daily watch helplessly as women and children die due to lack of well-equipped healthcare centers. This move for the establishment of the Federal Medical Center is therefore informed by the need to bridge the existing gap between primary, secondary healthcare, and tertiary healthcare delivery in Kaduna State and Nigeria as a whole. The gap between primary, secondary, and specialist healthcare in Nigeria is widening. There is no seamless transition from one to the other due to a number of factors. The factors include accessibility to medical facilities, affordability of Medicare, as well as inadequate medical personnel at primary and secondary healthcare levels. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, communicable diseases have continued to ravage many Nigerian communities due to the distance between the communities and tertiary healthcare institutions. Patients cannot access specialist hospitals where the ailments cannot be properly diagnosed and adequate treatment given. This unfortunate situation have also compounded the challenge of maternal and infant mortality. Densely populated and urban and rural communities are worse hit. Their poor economic situation makes resort to patronizing private hospitals near impossible. The Ahmadu Bello University Teaching Hospital Zaria, the main tertiary healthcare institutions in Kaduna, is overpopulated and can no longer adequately meet the demands for specialist health care by the citizenry. Ahmadu Bello Teaching Hospital is overstretched. It receives thousands of in and out patients monthly, with complex medical cases in the north of Nigeria being referred to it. The cost of traveling to Zaria, waiting for days or months to receive specialist attention, is clearly prohibitive. Most of the people end up patronizing quacks with their consequences. We must bring tertiary healthcare closer to the people. The establishment of the Federal Medical Center in Rigasa is therefore not only a necessity but an urgent imperative. The Nigerian national health policy is very clear on the role of the different tiers of government in healthcare delivery. Primary healthcare is to be provided by local governments, secondary healthcare by state governments, and tertiary healthcare by the federal governments. In operationalizing this policy, federal medical centers fill vacuums created by either the non-existence or inadequacy of a federal university teaching hospital in a state. The Federal Medical Center, like its counterparts around the world, is envisioned as a multidisciplinary space for treatment, research, harnessing science, and developing innovative means of tackling the numerous health challenges bedeviling the nation. Additionally, when established, the center will perform the following functions. A, to equip, maintain, and operate the center so as to provide facilities for diagnosis, preventive, curative, and rehabilitative service in medical treatment. B, to support and provide enabling environment for medical training of personnel as the board may consider necessary. C, to run an effective and cost-effective medical services to Nigerians. D, to review and update medical findings and research from time to time. When the bill is passed, assented to by Mr. President, and the Federal Medical Center Rigasa is established, the institution will provide services in the specialized areas like neurosurgery, cardiology, urology, orthopedics, pediatrics, internal medicine, radiotherapy, ear, nose, and throat treatment, gynecology, psychiatry, nuclear medicine, and other fields of medicine that may be required by Nigerians. I therefore urge Mr. President and my highly distinguished colleagues to take a giant step in the right direction by supporting this bill for the second reading and also backing its accelerated passage. In line with Order 77.3 of the Senate Standing Orders 2015 as amended, the compendium of the financial implication of the establishment of the Federal Medical Center Rigasa Connected is hereby attached. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, my highly distinguished colleagues. I so move.
Senator Yakubu Oseni.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Yakubu Oseni, Kogi Central, Kogi State. I rise to second the bill for the establishment of tertiary Federal Medical Center, Rigasa in Kaduna State. Mr. President, for the fact that there is a population explosion virtually across the nation today, it is very important to note that healthcare facilities everywhere are overstretched, and there is need to establish new ones to support the existing ones. And as such, we know that if this is established today, it is not only going to serve the people of Rigasa in Kaduna State, it's going to be beneficial to everybody in Nigeria. With that, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I urge my colleagues to join hands to support this bill for the benefit of Nigerians. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Olubunmi Adetumbi.
Thank you, Mr. President. Adetumbi from Ekiti North. This is a very, very good initiative, particularly given the socio-economic conditions of Rigasa in Kaduna, very densely populated area with severe infrastructure challenge. Until the placement of the train station, it used to be an underdeveloped area of Kaduna that requires substantial injection of federal presence and including state presence. I believe that with the addition of this type of medical center, it will further raise the standard of living of people in the area, give them access to improved health care services, and generally lower the social risk that Rigasa had constituted in the past to the security of the state. I want to support the mover of this motion in support of this bill. Mr. President, I support with the entirety of my constituency.
Is there anybody against the motion? The bill, please. Okay, I'll put the question, please. Those in favor that this bill be now read a second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Flag of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to provide the legal framework to establish the Federal Medical Center, Rigasa, Kaduna State, and for related matters, 2019, second reading.
A bill for an act to provide the legal framework to establish the Federal Medical Center, Rigasa, Kaduna State, and for related matters, 2019, second reading taken, and the bill is referred to the Senate Committee on Health to report back within 4 weeks. Thank you, distinguished colleagues. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the third order of the day is the second reading of the Oil Palm Industrial Park Establishment, etc. Bill 2019. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Tuesday, 19th November 2019. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Michael Aman-Nachi to move the motion for the bill to be read the second time.
Distinguished Senator Michael Nachi.
Thank you, Mr. President. A bill for an act to provide for the establishment of Oil Palm Industrial Park and for matters connected there with 2019 SB 171, second reading. Mr. President, my respected colleagues, permit me to lead the debate on this very important bill, which is geared towards revolutionizing the agricultural sector and thereby diversifying our national economy. The bill was read the first time in this chamber on Tuesday, 19th November 2019. Economic growth and prosperity are central to long-term poverty alleviation for social and environmental sustainability. The oil palm industry represents one of the most effective avenues for poverty alleviation, food security, and ensuring economic stability in Nigeria. The palm oil industry has the prospects of providing employment for millions of unskilled and semi-skilled people. As demonstrated in other economies, with proper focus on production of commodities of large-scale commercial value, improvement in the production of oil palm can effectively mitigate the poverty level in Nigeria. Palm oil is an important economic commodity of national and international importance. In the early 1960s, Nigeria was a net exporter of palm oil, contributing up to 43% of the global palm oil production. Even though palm oil production has sluggishly increased to about 850,000 metric tons per annum, as at 2010, the gap between production and consumption is widening as consumption is growing more rapidly than production. Thus, the country has become a net importer of palm oil in the last 10 years. Nigeria is importing an ever-increasing amount of palm oil to meet the yearning supply gap, which is currently about 300,000 metric tons per annum. The gaps between the production and consumption, shortage of supply of technical palm oil, TPO, and special palm oil, SPO, which are currently filled by imports, provide the greatest opportunity for growth in the palm oil value chain. Thus, there is strong growth opportunity for domestic production of technical palm oil, TPO, and special palm oil, SPO. Considering the amount of palm oil that is being imported into Nigeria and the significant end market value of the imports, roughly 60 billion naira, the vision for growth of the palm oil value chain is to replace 50% of palm oil imports with increased production of technical palm oil by 100 metric tons per annum and special palm oil by 50,000 metric tons per annum. In order to achieve this vision of import substitution, significant investment will have to be made through the establishment of oil palm industrial park to drive process by mitigating processors from the very low productivity of the traditional processing to the far more efficient processing. The palm oil industrial park will improve the efficiency of processing technology, leading to higher yields, greater production. Apart from palm oil, palm kernel and palm kernel oil, which are the main products of the oil palm, the tree and the processing waste generated when the fruits are processed to obtain palm oil and palm kernel have several uses. The sludge is used in marketing traditional soaps and fertilizer, and the PK cake is used widely as an input into the feed industry and for fertilizer. The processing waste, namely empty bunch, refuse, fiber, shell, sludge, and meal effluent, constitute about 74 to 76% of the total mass of the oil products. In addition, the other parts of the palm tree, trunk, leaf, fiber, have broad uses, while the bunch, refuse, and byproducts from the oil processing fiber, shell, sludge can be used as fuel for the mills, making briquettes to substitute for fuel woods. Mr. President, my highly respected colleagues, the idea of this bill focuses on attracting private sector agribusiness to set up processing plants in zones of higher palm oil production. This will be enabled by government by putting in place appropriate physical investment and infrastructure policies for oil palm industrial park that will link farmers in cluster to food manufacturing plants. The establishment of oil palm industrial park, which this bill is seeking, is aimed at developing commercial agriculture, adding value to oil palm production, creating jobs, and reviving the country's rural economy. Mr. President, my respected colleagues, the primary objective of this bill is to 1. Develop commercial agriculture, 2. Attract private sector palm oil processing companies, 3. Add value to oil palm value chain, 4. Reduce post-harvest losses, 5. Reduce Nigeria's dependence on palm oil importation, 6. Create jobs and revive the economy. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, this bill therefore seeks to provide for the establishment development, operation, maintain, management, and administration of oil palm industrial park in Nigeria for the purpose of establishing a legal framework and mechanism for the integration, coordination, planning, and monitoring of the parks as well. A, transform selected areas in the country into highly developed oil palm industrial parks with trained personnel and efficient services to be available to investors. B, promote the flow of investors, both foreign and local, into the park, which will generate employment opportunities, establish backward and forward integration into the park. C, promote cooperation between Nigeria and other advanced agricultural countries that will revolutionize the oil palm sector and improve productivity level. And D, stimulate the repatriation of Nigeria capital by providing attractive climate and incentives for business activities in the parks. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, the bill in Section 3 provides for the establishment of the oil palm industrial park to provide, among other things, A, accelerated development of farming community across the country. B, price support programs that will guarantee minimum price for oil palm and its allied products and make the authority of buyer of last resort of selected agricultural products. And C, employment generation through involvement of young school leavers in the outreach and processing activities of the enterprises operating within the zones. This bill will facilitate oil palm processing environment that will be used to attract private sector investment into the local production, thereby boosting the rural economy. The goals for the establishment of oil palm industrial park, which is sought by this bill, are: 1, reduce national dependency on food import, assure national food security at low and stable prices, create wealth for rural and largely agricultural communities that depend on agriculture for a livelihood, and create new sustainable jobs for the youth in agricultural production, processing, related activities, and halt rural-urban shift. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, the enactment of this bill into law will facilitate the attraction of investment in production, processing, and durable infrastructure in major clusters of oil palm production in the country to drive development of modern processing capacity. This framework created by this bill will pull investment into processing oil palm. The oil palm industrial park will provide the missing link between Nigeria oil palm production and industrialization. In line with our Order 77.3, the financial implication in the establishment of the oil palm industrial park is hereby attached. I therefore urge you all to support this bill for the second reading. Thank you.
Senate Deputy Chief Whip.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Aliu Sabi Abdullahi, Niger North. Mr. President, I want to second this debate as moved by distinguished Senator Michael Ama-Nnachi. The subject is definitely in tune and in line with the vision and what this ninth Senate intend to achieve. The idea of oil palm industrial park is simply to allow the total utilization of the oil palm as a tree. Every single part of the oil palm has value, and there are so many things that can be done out of it. And so the idea of having an industrial park is to allow us obtain maximum utility for what the oil palm represents. And of course, we are fully aware of the ongoing or the stories we hear all the time when the idea of oil palm is being discussed, that Malaysia came to Nigeria to collect our seedlings and today they are leading the world. They have since gone past this in terms of having an industrial park, in the sense that they've used that to launch industrial development across many other sectors where the oil palm has utility. From the palm tree itself, that is the main trunk, down to the palm fronts, and the oil palm seedling, the kernel, the oil we derive from it. There are so many industrial applications that are possible. And so when we have this bill transformed into an act and we are able to have an industrial park concept, the intendment here is that if we look at the oil palm belt from the southern Guinea savanna down to the forest area, and by way of states, if you take states like Nasarawa and even part of FCT, down to some part of Kwara State, Kogi State, down to Benue, down like that into the oil palm, the core oil palm belt of Edo, Delta, and the other states in the southeast and south-south. Mr. President, there is no doubt we have a very, very robust comparative advantage. What we don't have is the competitive advantage. And so the idea behind this bill will enable us to begin to develop the competitive advantage so that, as we have always said, the idea of youth employment, which we have also discussed last week in this chamber, it is very obvious that we can create a lot of jobs from this kind of bill. And we should also take note, vegetable oil, which is one of the products you get from oil palm also, is on the import prohibition list. And we are aware that a number of our citizens are involved in smuggling these vegetable oils through various routes. And along the transportation routes, many of them are adulterated. Today, if you are aware of the market, you will know that many of those who are in the market are complaining of adulteration. So where we have the advantage in terms of the comparative advantage, and we are able to develop this industry, our people do not need to be exposed to fake adulterated vegetable oils. And so, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the idea behind this industrial park for oil palm is a welcome one, and it sits very squarely on the very intendment of diversification, job employment, agro-industrialization, and other secondary industries that will come arising from what a park like this can do. I'm aware, Mr. President, Nigeria still has the best reserve of germplasm when it comes to oil palm. And so, if we are able to develop this, the forward or backward linkages that will be possible through this will also enable our researchers to deepen the research they are conducting so that various products that are possible from the oil palm can be derived. And so, Mr. President, with these comments, I second that this bill be read the second time, and I urge my colleagues to support him. Thank you.
Okay, those in favor that this bill be now read a second time, say aye. Aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to provide for the establishment of oil palm industrial park and for related matters connected therewith, 2019, second reading.
A bill for an act to provide for the establishment of oil palm industrial park and for related matters connected therewith, 2019, second reading taken, and the bill is referred to the Senate Committee on Agriculture and Rural Development to report back within 4 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, at this stage, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I would like to invoke the provisions of Order 1B to revise today's order of paper by bringing forward the item on the consideration of report before proceeding with the motions. In this respect, Mr. President, I would like to take the fourth order of the day as the consideration of the report of the Committee on Ethics and Privileges and Public Petitions. In respect of A, petition from Rex Onyekachi Ozoegbu, Esquire, on behalf of Chief Ezekiel Ariye and Chief James Wege against Nigerian Ajab Oil Company Limited for alleged inhumanity, cruelty, servitude, flagrant disobedience to law of equity, social justice, bad conscience, and deliberate continuous refusal to adequately compensate Chief Ezekiel Ariye and Chief James Wege for their life-threatening great bodily harm done by Nigerian Ajab Oil Company. And B, petition from Alhaji Adamu Jafar and 3 others against the Nigerian Defense Academy NDA Kaduna for the unjust withdrawal of 4 cadets from the academy on academic grounds. And C, petition from Nwachukwu A. Ndukwe against Honorable Minister of Water Resources for delaying his appointment Executive Director in Anambra Imo River Basin Development Authority. And petition from MS Chado Esquire on behalf of Mr. Azaya Ndagi Meyaki against the National Agency for Food, Drug Administration and Control for unlawful termination of his appointment over alleged forgery by the agency. Mr. President, distinguished senators will recall that these reports were laid on Thursday, 21st November 2019, Wednesday, 27th November 2019, and Thursday, 14th November 2019, respectively. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Patrick Ayo Akinyelure to move the motion for the Senate to consider the reports of the committee.
Senator Patrick Ayo Akinyelure.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, my name remains Ayo Akinyelure, representing Ondo Central. Mr. President, I move that the Senate do consider the reports of Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petition. In respect of A, petition from Rex Onyekachi Ozoegbu Esquire on behalf of Chief Ezekiel Ariye and James Wege against Nigerian Ajib Oil Company, NAOC Limited, for alleged inhumanity, cruelty, servitude, flagrant disobedience to law of equity, social justice, bad conscience, and deliberate continual refusal to adequately compensate Chief Ezekiel Ariye and Chief James Wege for their life-threatening great bodily harm by now. Mr. President, I move for this report to be considered.
Distinguished Senator Lawrence Erijapo, you second the motion.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, distinguished Senator Lawrence Erijapo, Bayelsa West, I rise to second the motion that the Senate do adopt the report of the Ethics and Privilege Committee as ably presented by my senior brother, Ayo. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Present the report.
Thank you, Mr. President. The report of Senate Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petition in respect of a petition from Rex Onyekachi Ozoegbu Esquire on behalf of Chief Ezekiel Ariye and Chief James Wege against Nigeria Ajib Oil Company Limited for alleged inhumanity, cruelty, servitude, flagrant disobedience to law of equity, social justice, bad conscience, and deliberate continuous refusal to adequately compensate Chief Ezekiel Ariaye and Chief James Wege on their life-threatening great bodily harm. Mr. President, the Senate will recall that on Tuesday, 8th of October 2019, Senator Ayoaki Eruda Ondo Central rose on Order 41 to lay petition referred to the committee from the office of the President of the Senate and drew the attention of the Senate to a petition from Rex Oyekashi, Jose Bueskia, on behalf of Chief Ezekiel Ariaye and Chief James Wege against Nigeria Ajib Oil Company now for alleged inhumanity, cruelty, servitude, flagrant disobedience to law of equity, social justice about conscience, and deliberate continual refusal to adequate compensate Chief Ezekiel Ariaye and Chief James Wege for their life-threatening great bodily harm by now, and urge the Senate to look into the matter. Mr. President, in line with Order 41.3, the Senate referred the matter to the Committee on Ethics, Public Petition for detailed investigation and further legislative action. We have 12 members of the committee as constituted by the Senate. Then we have the Secretariat there. Action of the committee. Following the Senate resolution and referral, the committee met, considered its mandate, and resolved that in addressing the issues raised in the petition, it will consider the position of the following documents. 1, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, the Senate Standing Orders 2015 as amended, and the principle of equality, fairness, and social justice. The committee also resolved that the following parties be invited to enable the committee to establish the truth. 1, the petitioner Rex Oyekashi Ozea Bueskia on behalf of Chief Ezekiel Ariaye and Chief James Wege. And 2, the respondent, Nigeria Ajib Oil Company Limited. The committee obtained the following testimonies. Written submission and listened to oral testimony from the petitioner and respondent as follows. 1, the petitioner, Rex Oyekashi Ozea Bueskia on behalf of Chief Ezekiel Ariaye and Chief James Wege. Testified before the committee, Chief Ezekiel Ariaye and Chief James Wege stated as follows. 1, that sometime in 1999, the Nigerian Ajib Company now Limited employed Chief Ezekiel Ariaye and Chief James Wege with the primary duty of assisting the Joint Task Force JTF for the sole purpose of identification of illegal oil thieves for apprehension and confiscation and destruction of their illegal facilities. 2, that their employment was squared to legally documented memorandum of understanding duly entered into by NAO and the host committees of their clients. 3, that on 5th February 2012 and 21st March 2013, while on assignment with JTF and the Nigerian Navy respectively, in the course of trying to apprehend illegal oil thieves and their vessels around Obi fishing settlement and in Big Biaba fishing settlement in Brass local government areas of Bayelsa State, his clients were involved in a boat accident and heavily gun attack respectively, which both resulted in serious injuries. 4, that his clients were given medical attention by now, who unfortunately reneged on his agreement to award his proposed life surveillance contract to his clients, which would have nipped their sovereign into the mud. 5, that having failed to legally and morally do the needful, it was therefore the humble submission of his client to peacefully and respectfully demand for adequate compensation of the due to the tune of 20 billion naira only. And 6, that it will be noted that the loss of wife and children of one of his clients, Ezekiel Ariaye, was due to his perpetual incapacitation. The emotional and physical trauma suffered and still being suffered by his client remain unquantifiable, and that the above demand sum will only help to give them and their family a new lease of life before they finally close their eyes in peace. And 7, that the above 20 billion demanded by both clients was to be equally shared by them to the tune of 10 billion naira each. Mr. President, the committee received this following from the respondent, Nigeria Ajib Oil Company Limited. Responding, the representative of Nigeria Ajib Oil Company Limited, led by Mr. Barry Nwibani, General Manager, Public Affairs of the company, stated as follows. 1. That an earlier attempt made to settle the matter proved abortive because of the refusal of both parties to accept 10 million naira each as full and final settlement offered by Nigeria Agip Oil Company, and 2. That now was willing to renegotiate terms and end the long-standing petition by using alternative dispute resolution to address the issue raised in the petition. The committee findings and observations. The committee in a closed session.
Chairman, you know you have 4 reports. If we go at this rate, you have to read everything in the reports. Go to recommendations, please.
The report is with all the members of the Senate. I move straight to the conclusion and recommendation of the committee. Recommendation. Following from the foregoing above, the committee wishes to recommend as follows. 1. That the Senate do commend the Nigerian Agip Oil Company, NAOC Limited, for accepting the advice of the Senate through the Committee on Ethics, Privilege and Public Petition for issuing certified bank check in settlement of agreed sum of 40 million naira to both petitioners, Chief Ariaye and Chief James Wege, at the rate of 20 million naira each, as compensation for all that they suffered, thereby resolving the age-long matter arising from the petition amicably and permanently. 2. That the Senate do direct the management of NAOC should comply with the mutual agreement reached with the petitioner to award reasonable contract to the petitioners soonest for empowerment needed to sustain their continued existence and to maintain good relationship with the host community and the petitioners in particular henceforth. Conclusion, Mr. President, my distinguished and respected colleagues, on behalf of the Senate Committee on Ethics and Public Petition, I hereby use this medium to appreciate the Senate President, the President of the Senate, the leadership of the Senate of the National Assembly for the opportunity given to us to serve in this capacity as the voice of the voiceless Nigeria. I so submit for conclusion, Mr. President. Thank you.
Any comments? Otherwise, we'll go to the recommendations. In settlement of the agreed sum of 40 million naira to both petitioners, Chief Ezekiel Ariye and Chief James Wege, at the rate of 20 million naira each as compensation for all that they suffered, thereby resolving the age-long matter arising from the petition amicably and permanently. Those in favor of this recommendation say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes. Recommendation 2, that the Senate do direct that the management of NOAC should comply with mutual agreement reached with the petitioners to award reasonable contracts to the petitioners soonest for empowerment needed to sustain their continued existence and to maintain good relationship with the host community and the petitioners in particular henceforth. Before I put the question, Chairman, this issue of contract, how was the agreement reached? Was it a signed agreement or gentleman?
Thank you, Mr. President. It was a mutually agreed. I will call the MD of the company and I said this is the recommendation of the committee to the Nigerians, and they accepted because they said they were going to give them what is reasonable, and that ab initio, that was what they promised them. But because they rejected the 10 million offered ab initio, they couldn't go to the second, agreement. But they mutually agreed that what is reasonable for them as a contract that they could community execute in their local community, that they will give it to them.
Okay. Those in favor of this recommendation say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Your next report. Please jump to the recommendations after the introduction. I think you are going to read the petition from Elijah Aminu Jafar.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the second report is that of report of Senate Committee on Ethics, Privilege and Public Petitions from Alhaji Aminu Jafar and 3 others against Nigerian Defense Academy, Kaduna, for unjust withdrawal of 4 cadets from the Nigerian Defense Academy on academic grounds. Mr. President, following the Senate, the Senate will recall that on Wednesday, 3rd July 2019, arising from Order 41, Senator Jubril Barau, Kano North, drew the attention of Senate to a petition from his constituent, Alhaji Aminu Jafar, and 3 others against Nigeria Defense Academy, NDA, for their unjust withdrawal from the academy on academic grounds, and urged the Senate to look into the matter. In line with Order 41.3, the Senate referred the matter to the Committee on Ethics, Privilege and Public Petition for detailed investigation and further legislative action. Mr. President, the committee invited both the respondents and the petitioners, and the testimony as follows. Briefly, we said the petitioner Alhaji Aminu Jafar testified before the committee and speaking for himself. Alhaji Aminu Jafar made the following submission, as stated in page 3, 1 to 4, and particularly on now item 7, the oversight of the Defense Academy management caused his son to spend another 2 years in the academy, disregarding the fact that approvals were duly granted to him to pursue geography course instead of mechanical engineering, which was his former department, and that by the doctrine of estoppel law, the management board of Nigerian Defense Academy should be stopped from denying the validity of the approval granted the boy to study geography 2 years ago. Mr. President, the contention was that the Defense Academy approved movement of this boy from geography from his former mechanical engineering department to geography department. But now, Defense Academy now want to claim that since the boy didn't do well in mechanical engineering, that it should be, withdrawn from the university or from the academy. But the committee mandated them that it would be unfair for this boy to be sent packing, since it was the action of negligence on the part of the academy to grant him to go to other department. And this department of geography, this boy was making 2-1 grade there, and they want to withdraw him for him to lose. So finally, it was resolved as following that the committee make the following recommendation to the Senate for approval. Mr. President, in view of the findings above, the committee hereby recommend as follows: that the Senate finds the inability of Nigerian Defense Academy, NDA, to relegate and withdraw Cadet Aminu Jafar after 2 academic sessions, according to his own rule, unacceptable and unjust, and accordingly demand that justice be restored and Cadet Aminu Jafar be reinstated to complete his degree program in geography department. Mr. President, in conclusion, most distinguished colleagues, on behalf of the Senate Committee, we wish to use this medium to appreciate the Senate President and leader of the Senate for granting us opportunity to serve in this capacity.
Any comments? Senator Barau Jibrin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Senator Barau Jibrin, I represent Kano North. Mr. President, this is indeed the #1 assembly in this country, the Senate. consisting of men and women of wisdom. Mr. President, we must bring our wisdom to bear in this case. A student, a young man, who is striving to be a good citizen in this country, was admitted to study in NDA. Now, after 2 years, he saw that he could not continue with the program. He was admitted to study. That was mechanical engineering. In 2017, he requested that there should be a change of program for him, changing from mechanical engineering department to geography department, and that was approved. In the new department he was approved to move into, he did very well. He has been doing, but he did very well. He was one of the best in that department. Then thereafter, in 2019, the university came up with a review of his academic policies with a new guideline. And they created that guideline and said it should be retroactive. That those things that were done in 2017 should be affected by this new guideline that was approved in 2019, and decided that boy should leave the university. This is injustice, Mr. President. So we must make sure that we will not allow this boy to suffer.
Distinguished Senator Jibrin, I think the recommendation is good enough. We don't have to debate this again. So I will put the question on the recommendation. The recommendation reads that the Senate finds the inability of the Nigerian Defense Academy to relegate and withdraw Cadet Aminu Jafar after 2 academic sessions according to his own rules unacceptable and unjust, and accordingly demands that justice be restored and Cadet Aminu Jafar be reinstated to complete his degree program in Geography Department. Those in favor of this recommendation say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Next report.
Thank you, Mr. President. The next report is in respect of a petition from Nwachukwu A. Undukwe against the Honorable Minister of Water Resources for delaying his appointment as Executive Director in Anambra Imo River Basin Development Authority. Preamble. The Senate will record that on Thursday, 8 October 2019, arising on Order 41, Senator Eyinaya H. Abarebe, Abba South, drew the attention of the Senate to a petition from Nwachukwu A. Undukwe against the Honorable Minister of Water Resources for delaying his appointment as Executive Director in Anambra Imo River Basin Development Authority, and urged the Senate to look into the matter. In line with Order 43, the Senate referred the matter to the Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petition for detailed investigation and further legislative action. Let's go to our findings. To save time, we go to our findings on page 5. Observations and findings. After reading the submissions and listening to both parties to the petition, the committee observes as follows. 1. That the real problem between the petitioner and the minister was that the decision of the minister to recommend the nominee for appointment as chairman, a position even higher than that of executive director, to Anambra Imo River Basin Development Authority was communicated to the governor or the nominee, or was not communicated to the governor or the nominee. 2. That based on the gap created by this obvious lack of communication, the petitioner was compelled to seek other means of getting into public office, which the governor seemed to have opened up for him. And 3. That the committee noted that something could still be done in spite of the obvious omission, and pleaded with the minister, who promised to fill the Abia space not later than end of the first quarter of the year 2020. Recommendation. In view of the committee's findings and observations above, and the special plea made to the Minister of Water Resources, bearing in mind that the Federal Charter Principle of Engagement into public service, the committee hereby recommends to the Senate for approval as follows. 1. That since vacancies will occur between now and the first quarter of 2020, the minister should honor his word and give Abia State priority over other constituent states in the appointment of a new executive director into the board of Anambra/Imo River Basin Development Authority. 2. Appoint the Abia State nominee as an executive director in line with federal character principle of engagement into the service of the public service of the Federation. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, we use this medium to appreciate the leadership of the Senate for giving us opportunity to serve in this capacity. I so submit for completion, Mr. President. Thank you.
Any comments? We'll go to the recommendations. Recommendation 1, that since vacancies would occur between now and the first quarter of 2020, the minister should honor his word and give Abia State priority over the other constituent states in the appointment of new executive directors into the board of Anambra-Imo River Basin Development Authority. Those in favor of this recommendation say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Recommendation 2, appoint the Abia State nominee as an executive director in the federal character principle of engagement into public service of the Federation. Those in favor of recommendation 2 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Next report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, the next report is that of, in respect of a petition for Mr. M.S. Shadow, Esquire, on behalf of Mr. Isa Ndagi Mayaki, against the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, for unlawful termination of his appointment over alleged forgery by the agency. Mr. President, the Senate will recall that on Thursday, 26 July 2019, rising on Order 41, Senator Sadiq Umar, Kwara North, drew the attention of the Senate to a petition from his constituent, M.S. Chado Esquire, on behalf of Mr. Isa Ndagi Mayaki, against the National Agency for Food and Drugs Administration and Control, NAFDAC, for unlawful termination of his appointment over alleged forgery by the agency, and urge the Senate to look into the matter. In line with Order 43, the Senate, Order 41.3, the Senate referred the matter to the Committee on Ethics, Free and Public Petition for detailed investigation and further legislative action. The committee thereafter took the necessary action by inviting both the petitioner and the respondent and received written and oral submission from both parties. And later have the following observations and recommendations from the submission received from both parties. Let's go to page 5, observations and findings. After careful studying the written and oral presentation of M.S. Shadow Esquire on behalf of Mr. Isa Ndagi Mayaki and the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, the committee observed the following. 1. That during a routine inspection tour of bakeries in Tagia Town, Mariga local government area, Niger State 2015, NAFDAC inspector found a bread license that was forged and issued to a bakery by one Suleiman Haruna, a staff of a National Health Insurance Scheme, NHIS. 2. That to determine the culpability of staff in the crime and to nip such act in the mud, the then state coordinator, NAFDAC, Niger State Mesa Dandi Nantim Mula, summoned series of meetings with his staff to find out if any of them was remotely involved in the forgery, but no staff agreed to have knowledge of the forgery. 3. That this prompted the NAFDAC state coordinator to write to the Department of State Security Service, Niger State, DSS, to investigate the matter with a view to identify the principal suspect, Mr. Suleiman Haruna, who was at large. 4. That Mr. Suleiman Haruna, an engineer of Tajia Town, Mariga local government area, Niger State, had been representing prospective producers or bakers to process the application for NAFDAC registration for bread and bread product through the state coordinator, who usually gives instruction to one of his staff, Mr. Isa Ndagi Mayaki, to process for approval and issuance of license. 5. That in the course of the investigation by the DSS, Mr. Suleiman now went underground, disappeared. But the DSS invited Mr. Isa Ndagi Mayaki, detained him for 48 hours without food and tortured him. And under duress, he accepted committing the crime. That NAFDAC relied on the source report of DSS that Mr. Isa Ndagi Mayaki was the mastermind of the forgery, terminated his appointment with effect from 8 July 2015 with Mr. Suleiman Haruna, the principal suspect, had not been arrested and investigated. That Mr. Suleiman Haruna, who was a principal suspect on the forgery saga, was not a staff of NAFDAC, but that of NHIS, and that he fronted for bakeries in this community to obtain bakery licenses from NAFDAC with the knowledge of the then NAFDAC coordinator in Nigeria, Mr. Dandi Nantim Mula. And 8, that DSS, in the course of the investigation, neither saw and investigated Mr. Suleiman Haruna, the principal subject, nor invited him, nor invited the then NAFDAC coordinator, Mr. Dandi Natim Musa, for questioning to determine their involvement in the crime, but only invited, detained, and indicted Mr. Nsa Ndagi Mayaki. Recommendation of the committee. In view of the above observation and findings, the committee hereby recommends as follows. 1. That the Senate directs that Mr. Nsa Ndagi Mayaki be reinstated back to service of a National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and be paid all his entitlement as his indictment, investigation, and termination of his appointment were not holistic and crystal clear, and therefore sounded more like victimization, as there was no visible evidence to justify his disengagement from service. And 2, that NAFDAC should liaise with the Nigerian police force to conduct further investigation by arresting and interrogating Mr. Suleiman Haruna, the principal suspect, a staff of National Health Insurance Scheme, NHS, and principal suspect to the crime to unearth his involvement in the crime and subsequent punishment in line with the provisions of relevant laws of Federal Republic of Nigeria. Mr. President, my most distinguished colleagues, on behalf of the Senate Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Relations, I hereby use this medium to appreciate the Senate President, the leadership of the United Senate, for the opportunity given to us to serve in this capacity as the voice of the voiceless Nigeria. I so submit, Mr. President. Thank you.
Any comments? Let's go to the recommendations. That the Senate directs that Mr. Isa Ndagi Mayaki be reinstated by the National Agency for Food and Drugs Administration and Control, NAFDAC, and be paid all his entitlements as his indictment, investigation, and termination of his appointment were not holistic and crystal clear, and therefore sounded more like victimization, as there was no visible evidence to justify his disengagement from service. Those in favor of this recommendation say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Recommendation 2, that NAFDAC should liaise with Nigeria Police Force to conduct further investigation by arresting and interrogating Mr. Suleiman Haruna, a staff of the National Health Insurance Scheme and principal suspect to the crime, to unearth his involvement in the crime and subsequent punishment in line with provisions of relevant laws of Federal Republic of Nigeria. Those in favor of recommendation 2 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Thank you, Mr. President, my highly respected colleagues. The fifth order of the day is a motion standing in the name of the distinguished Senator Ifeanyi Ubah on the need to investigate alleged ill treatment and injustices suffered by Nigerian traders and businesses in Ghana. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the distinguished Senator Ifeanyi Ubah to move the motion.
Distinguished Senator Ifeanyi Ubah.
Thank you, Mr. President. My most distinguished colleagues, I am Ifeanyi Ubah, Anambra South. My motion today, Mr. President, is on the need to investigate the alleged ill treatment and injustice suffered by Nigerian traders and businesses in Ghana. Senate note with concern alleged injustice and ill treatment of Nigerian traders and Nigerian businesses owners in Ghana. Aware that Ghana and Nigeria as member states of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, have reciprocal obligations under the ECOWAS protocol to their respective citizens to reside and do business within their territories without molestation. Further aware that following the desire of the Ghanaian government to promote trade and good neighborhood between Nigeria under President Kufuor's motto, named Property Owning Democracy, many Nigerian businesses went to establish in Ghana, creating thousands of jobs for Ghanaian citizens and generally contributing to the growth of Ghana's economy. Note that at the end of 2010, Nigerian businesses accounted for 60% of foreign investment in Ghana from the African continent. Concerned that of recent, the once flourishing economic relationship between Nigeria and Ghana has come under repeat threat as a result of recent hostile posture of Ghanaian authorities and the indigenous Ghana Trade Union towards Nigerian traders through the adoption of discriminatory legislations aimed at frustrating Nigerian traders and businesses, such as the passage of the Ghana Investment Promotion Council Act 865 that raised the amount of money in registering business owned by foreigners, mostly owned by Nigerians in Ghana, to $200,000, and further restriction and prohibition of foreigners from trading in particular markets. Molestation of Nigerian traders and other hostile acts directed against Nigerian businesses, such as the recent closure of over 600 shops and businesses belonging to Nigerians, carried out by Ghana Union of Trade Association, GUTA, on 2nd December 2019, and which remained closed up to the time of moving this motion. Enactment of Ghana Investment Promotion Center Act 865 of 2013, which prohibits ECOWAS citizens from engaging in small and medium-scale enterprises, with a further prohibition on registration of SMEs by foreigners, and the frustration faced by Nigerian citizens in registering business as a result of obstacles placed on the way of genuine Nigerian entrepreneurs, like the requirement of proofs of importation of $1 million into Ghana as applicable to citizens of non-ECOWAS members such as Ghana, India, ECT. Aware that Nigeria and Ghana had previously set up a joint task force from the Trade Ministry of the two countries to inspect business facilities of companies registered under the ECOWAS Trade Liberalization Scheme in both countries, and also organized an economic summit in Accra in 2010 in order to address the dangers of the above-mentioned threats to business interests of Nigerians in Ghana. Concerned that the above measures and the protection offered Nigerian traders under the ECOWAS framework have failed to address instant trade of Nigerian businesses in Ghana. I'm mindful that unless the Senate intervenes, the situation might deteriorate into a serious diplomatic and economic crisis. Further concerned that this allegation casts doubt on the commitment of the government of Ghana to genuinely reciprocate the sacrifice of Nigeria as a leading member of ECOWAS by guaranteeing the safety of Nigerian businesses in Ghana. Worried that the complaints of affected Nigerian traders and business owners are yet to receive the desired attention by appropriate authorities from the federal government of Nigeria, even after repeated written complaints, and convinced that there is an urgent need to investigate this allegation and indeed draw the attention of the federal government of Nigeria and its relevant authorities to this unfortunate development. Senate hereby accordingly resolves to delegate the Senate Committee on Foreign Affairs and Trade and Investment to liaise with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to investigate the issues raised in my motion and report to the Senate within 2 weeks. I so move, Mr. President.
The distinguished colleagues, the sponsor of the motion, Senator Patrick Ifeanyi has apparently changed the prayers. So what is on the order paper is not the prayers. He has one and single prayer only. And I think we have all heard the prayer. Now I can take contribution. Senator Yarobinos.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Binos Dauda Yaro, representing Adama South. I rise to second the motion so ably articulated and moved by my neighbor and brother, distinguished Senator Ifeanyi Patrick Uba. In seconding his motion, I would like to add that Nigerians are all over the world making contributions to the economies of various countries of the world. And some countries, especially in Africa, when they have their problems, they take it out on Nigerians. We have, in these chambers, debated the xenophobic attacks in South Africa against Nigerians. And we have seen from this motion the hostile action that is taken by Ghanaians against Nigerian businessmen in Ghana. Therefore, it is important for us to investigate this matter so that other African countries can see that when our citizens are attacked or hostile policies are articulated against them, we do not just let it go. It is therefore in this regard that I second this motion. I so second. Thank you.
Senator Issa Jibrin.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Issa Jibrin, representing Kogi East. Mr. President, I have a slightly different approach to this issue. You know, every country, especially the developing countries, every country, irrespective of any form of trade agreement, tries to protect her indigenous entrepreneurs. And I think that is exactly what Ghana is doing. As much as possible, yes, Nigeria has invested a lot in Ghana. But the Ghanaians too are also mindful of their indigenous entrepreneurs, and there are some areas of businesses that they feel should be an exclusive preserve for their indigents. I think that is exactly what is happening here. We may go into investigation, probably through our Nigerian embassy there, but I want to believe that Ghanaians and Ghana is trying to protect its indigenous entrepreneurs. That is my submission.
Senator Yusuf Abubakar Yusuf.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I support the intentment of this motion. It's very good. The intention is excellent. However, I differ from the procedure of achieving the intentment of this motion. Some few weeks ago, we passed a bill here on procurement, and we were trying to protect the interest of our local or indigenous companies. I mean, every country is one and the same. So for me, my understanding, like I said, the procedure, I have read through the motion. I have found that there are so many areas that are highly speculative. And I don't think, in this chamber, we'll work on something that is highly speculative. I can give you an example. Number one is the adoption of discriminatory legislations aimed at frustrating Nigerian traders. I don't think it's discriminating against only Nigerians. So I think it's speculative. And then to talk about in Ghana to $200,000, I think it's also, they're trying to protect themselves. It is not targeted to Nigerians. In as much as, yes, there are fallout to certain policies, but I think we should be very, very careful in raising the issue here and debating it. I think it is a realm of the executive function, to consider these issues before they are brought up to the parliament. So my own position on this is that, we should be very, very careful how we handle this kind of motion so that we do not raise a diplomatic route. If tomorrow Ghana says the Senate in Nigeria actually debated, considered this bill, we too, we are going to do our own. So I don't know why it is going to extend us too. So my own position is that, this bill is not yet matured. I mean, this motion is not yet matured to be brought in to the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Let the executive side, do their own investigations before we are pulled into it. Thank you very much.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Heinne Abaribe. I represent Abia South. I agree with the mover of this motion. I think the intendment of this motion is the protection of our citizens living outside of Nigeria, whether it's in Ghana or in Benin or any other place in Africa. Maybe the drafting may have, been such to raise our emotion, where we talk about the question of discriminatory acts and so forth. But that is the drafting. And I think that the remover of the motion has also realized it, which is why you can see that most of the items in the prayers have been modified to now take care of this. So I think that we should just let this motion seek to make sure that we call attention to the fact of what is happening to our citizens outside of this country and see a way of making sure that they are not unduly punished for reasons best known to the countries where they belong. I so submit.
Senator Muhammad Adamu Bulkachwa.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Adamu Muhammad Bulkachwa, representing Bauchi North Senatorial District. Mr. President, I feel the mover of this motion may be because, sorry, not to bring you down, because of your age. Have you forgotten we still have a bag here in Nigeria we call Ghana must go? I mean, if Nigerians or Nigerian government has the right to ask all Ghanaians doing business, working with government and other institutions, even private sector, to leave Nigeria, and they abided by it. So, if such a thing is happening in Ghana, in which case, rather in this case, they were not asked to leave Ghana. No, they were only asked to shut their businesses where their business contravenes Ghanaian legislation or laws. So I think what we in this honorable chamber should do probably would be to liaise with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Nigerian embassy, for them to give us on-the-spot assessment of what exactly is going on. Every responsible government must protect the interests of their citizens wherever they might find themselves anywhere in the world. But in this respect, in close by Ghana, a neighbor, an ECOWAS member, AU member, we must be careful to find out the facts first before we jump into conclusion. But I'm happy for one thing, that the mover of the motion himself has downgraded the prayers and called for such investigation. And I think in that respect, I will support him so that we should investigate and know exactly what is going on and see what may necessarily have to be done. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Sandy Ono.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sandy Ono, Crossover Central. Mr. President, let me join colleagues, commend the mover of the motion, and also commend colleagues for the maturity they have exemplified in the discourse. When we speak here, people nationally and internationally should be able to know that there's a lot of maturity and objectivity that comes across. For me, what this discussion throws back at us is the necessity to do our country good. I visited Cape Town the other day in South Africa, and we're just walking across the British Embassy. And my younger brother, who was schooling there, drew my attention to the fact that it was empty. There was nobody there. Young and old. There was no pressure on the embassy. Very much unlike the situation in Nigeria, where as early as 4 a.m., 5 a.m., Nigerians are queuing to go to these places. When they see the desperation in your having to go there and stay there, they treat you the way they want to treat you. When you're comfortable with your country, when what you want you can find in your country, you stay in your country. Yeah, we know this is the era of globalization, but globalization in terms that are good enough for you, that give you dignity, not otherwise. So I share the view of colleagues who are saying we must investigate why Ghana and Ghanaians and their president are making bold to put together these kinds of stiff laws, and why they're asking that our citizens should leave. I don't think it's a quid pro quo thing. They are trying to do a revenge. If our stay in Ghana was adding value in such a way that we are invaluable or even indispensable, they wouldn't ask us to leave. We should investigate to know exactly what the situation is. Two, I have made the point here that even in colonial times, when people when colonial powers were talking in terms of free trade, there was also protectionism in their spheres of influence. Every country, every responsible country must protect its citizens, must protect its politics, must protect its culture, and must protect its economy. Every. So everyone was speaking of free trade and so on. When it begins to bite the country will stand up. That is why we are dealing with the border issues in Nigeria, and we are standing up to say it is correct because of the insecurity it causes, because of the damage to our economy it's causing. That is what Ghana is doing too. But let's get down to Ghana so that we can see for ourselves why this policy is being introduced, why these anti-Nigerian policies are being introduced, so that if there is something constructive we can do about it, we do about it at least for the benefit of friendly African and friendly and good neighborliness. That will be my position, Mr. President.
Senator Benjamin Uwajumogu.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Benjamin Uwajumogu. I represent the good people of Imo North. Mr. President, I wanted to commend the mover of this motion for this motion. I think we have all, every day we read papers and we read stories of how Nigerian businesses in Ghana and other African countries are being harassed, how they are seizing their products, closing down their shops. These have been contained in our newspapers, and I think all of us have read about it. And I'd like to correct the impression Senator Bokachoa gave when he said that Nigerians closed down Ghanaian businesses and forced them out. That was during the military regime. I believe under the Shagari government, there was a protocol signed by ECOWAS, which allowed free flow of goods from one country to the other. So if Ghana is enacting laws that prescribes $200,000, for you to register foreign businesses, and ECOWAS countries are not exempted, that means they are targeting ECOWAS countries, and Nigeria is an ECOWAS country. So I believe that the committee that we set up to go and investigate, it's very important that they go investigate.
Senator Balaibu, and then we round up.
Thank you, Mr. President. Buhari Abdul Fattah, Oyo North. Mr. President, when I came in this morning and I saw this motion, I was worried in the sense that I just believe that raising this motion in our parliament may lead to a lot of problem, because the Ghanaian parliament may also decide that, look, we have a different view. You don't know the reason why we took this decision, and we are talking about our country. Anyhow a country is going to govern its place and their policy, it's not our own business to discuss it. It's not our business. It's their policy of their country, and this is the way they want to go about it. Even if they want to charge $1 billion, if you can fit in, you stay. If you can't fit in, come back to Nigeria. 60%, according to the mover of the motion, 60% of the investment in Ghana today are Nigerians. Imagine we needed that 30% they look from that 60%. They will employ some people in this country. If they believe they can't cope with $200,000 over there, they should come back home. We will charge them only $1,000. Let them come and register and establish their business here for us to be able to take the country to where we ought to be. Number two, Senator Bokachoa made mention about Nigerians sending Ghanaians away. No, it was the Ghanaian that started it in 1969. Where the aliens compliance order, they said in retaliation to what the Ghanaians did, probably is what led to the Ghanaian must go. I just decided to put the correction. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Balaibu.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. If you carefully look at the prayers of this motion, carefully, then you...
Before, let me welcome you back, but before you misfire, all the prayers there have been collapsed into one prayer, and the prayer is here. So don't talk about what you see there.
Well, Mr. President, I'm normally guided by the documents supplied to me under your authority that will guide the business of the Senate. But I think even if you collapse the entire prayers here, they will lead to one thing, and that is whether this Senate has a responsibility to protect our citizens anywhere they are, to ensure that they conduct their life and businesses in accordance with the laws of where they are resident. And that if there is any complaint, whether this Senate has a responsibility to equally look into those complaints to see how it can adequately be taken care of. We cannot, by the mere experience of saying that Ghana has made some laws that, on quotes, appear discriminatory against
Nigerians, and then we say we will not look. We have a responsibility to look at this. And the way to do it is, I don't know what the prayer is before Mr. Senate President, but I think there is nothing that goes out of place for the Senate to constitute a small committee first to find out what exactly went wrong that led to the closure of these shops that were allegedly closed by the trade union. What can be done to assist them maybe to reopen so that they can continue their business? And then in the alternative, what other measures can the Senate take to make the enabling environment in Nigeria as conducive as that of Ghana, so that these people will begin to come back and then build their economy from here. So I don't want us to throw this motion like that. I think it's important that, I don't know the prayer, but I think it's important.
I think I can read it for you. Okay. So that it guides you. That the Senate delegates the Senate Committee on Foreign Affairs and Senate Committee on Trade and Investment to liaise with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to investigate the status of Nigerian businesses in Ghana.
Apt and correct, and shows that we are sensitive to whatever is happening to any Nigerian, irrespective of where he stays globally. Let me say that Nigeria and Ghana happen to be the only English-speaking country around here. And then say, no, but when I'm talking about proximity, and that whatever is humanly possible by this Senate should be done to bolster the relationship between Nigeria and Ghana along the path of mutual understanding. You know, so I don't think that this motion can be just thrown away like that. I am of the opinion that my colleagues should support this motion. Let us put a small committee. That committee is too big. Small committee of 4 or 5 people that will go and find out what exactly is happening and come and advise the Senate on what they think should be done to properly look at their situation in Ghana. We do not want to live as a Senate that will continue to close its eyes, you know, to what is happening to our citizens around the world. So I think, my colleagues, I urge you to support the motion. Let it pass so that we can do something at least by way of intervention from this Senate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me put the question then. And there's only one prayer, sorry. That the Senate delegates the Senate Committee on Foreign Affairs and Senate Committee on Trade and Investment to liaise with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to investigate the status of Nigerian businesses in Ghana and report back in 4 weeks. Those in favor of this prayer say aye. Amendment. Okay, amendment Balanala.
You know, in our determination to cut cost of governance, it's important we just shrink this representation to about 4 people, maybe 2 from 4.
It's not suggesting that anybody is going anywhere. They are liaising with the ministries of foreign affairs here because they have the statutory function of working across the world to protect our people. So we need the information from them. Are you okay with that? Okay. Those in favor of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Thank you very much, distinguished colleagues. Let me remark that we owe every single Nigerian the responsibility and obligation to protect the person and, of course, promote and protect the economic interests of such citizens wherever they are. And this situation is another dimension of either lack of understanding or maybe lack of intervention, early engagements between the 2 countries. When the xenophobic attacks came to a head in South Africa, Mr. President traveled to South Africa, of course, on a state visit. And of course, so much was done in a very bilateral fashion between the 2 countries. I think the time has come for Nigerian authorities to engage with the Ghanaian authorities with single mind of getting a solution to this perennial problem, because this thing has been happening for a long time. So we need to know what is happening, and together with the executive arm of government, we have to find a solution to this. Thank you very much. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the sixth order of the day is a motion standing in the name of distinguished Senator Professor Sunday Ojang Ono and 31 others on the gridlock on the Calabar-Itu Federal Highway. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Sunday Ojang Ono to move the motion.
Senator Professor Sunday Ono.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, distinguished colleagues. My motion is on the gridlock on the Calabar-Itu Federal Highway. The Senate notes that the Calabar-Itu Highway is the major link between Cross River, Akwa Ibom, and other South-South and Southeast states. Further notes that the Calabar-Itu Federal Highway is very paramount to the economy of South-South and Southeast states due to its economic significance. Aware that due to the near unmotorable state of the road over the last couple of years, the Federal Ministry of Power, Works and Housing in 2017 awarded Julius Berger Construction Company the contract for the rehabilitation and dualization of the highway. Further aware that the project has been abandoned for months, thereby causing heavy traffic gridlock. This has greatly affected commuters, motorists, traders, and businessmen. It is particularly distressing to note in this regard that almost all the retail and commercial purchases for the Cross River market come from Onitsha, Aba, and Port Harcourt. In the same vein, the entire South-South and Southeast states depend substantially on Cross River State for the purchase of quality chippings for roads, building, and other forms of construction activities. This gridlock has therefore undeniably locked down critical economic activities in all the aforementioned states, thereby creating a terrible economic downturn with obviously devastating consequences on the citizenry. Worried that the state of the road has worsened to the level where erosion, gullies, and potholes are the major characteristics of the highway, which clearly is a national embarrassment. Further worried that this terribly deteriorating state of the road, if not quickly addressed, would clearly promote poverty and worsen the already alarming security situation in the zones aforementioned. And concerned that the distance between Calabar and Uyo, which ordinarily should be about 1.5 hours, now takes several hours or even days, resulting to a shift to the usage of the ocean route between Calabar and Oron that has already claimed several lives, resulting from both mishaps occasioned by an influx that was unprepared for. Accordingly, results to 1. Urge the federal government to immediately mandate Julius Berger to, as a matter of economic emergency, resume the rehabilitation and dualization of the Calabar-Itu Federal Highway. 2. Fund the project in a meaningful manner as to accelerate commitment on the part of Julius Berger and ensure speedy completion of the project. And 3. Observe a minute's silence in honor of those who have already lost their lives in the ocean pathway of Calabar and Oron. I so move, Mr. President.
Senator Akoya-Yakin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Senator Akoya-Yakin, representing Akwa Ibom South Senatorial District. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I want to commend Senator Professor Sunday Ono for bringing up this motion concerning the Calabar-Itu Highway, which has become a death trap to our people. Severally, the issue of the maintenance and reconstruction of roads across the nation has been raised in these hallowed chambers. And we've made a call on the Federal Ministry of Works to do something about the roads. We've also requested that the budget for road construction maintenance in Nigeria should also be improved. Mr. President, the Calabar-Itu Road, as rightly stated in this motion by Senator Ono, is a major Trong A road that links several states. And for some years, Mr. President, we have been suffering in the state, in this part of the country. For someone to move from Uyo to Calabar or Calabar to Uyo takes some days, a minimum of 7 hours. A sister-in-law of mine that moved from Calabar to visit me in Uyo, Akwa Ibom State, took 5 solid hours to go through the Calabar-Itu Road. The major problem I see is not the contractor, it's on the release of funds, mobilization to the contractor to do its own part of the work. I'm very happy, Mr. President, that these chambers, through the committee, passed the amendment bill for procurement that will enable the executive to mobilize contractors enough to be able to do the work. And again, passing the budget, returning the budget to January to December cycle, I'm very certain will also help in the implementation of the budget. Mr. President, we've lost so many lives. Those who can't go through the 7 hours, 5 hours on the road, return back to Oron, Calabar, using speedboats. Again, that waterfront where we used to have ferries that commuters, when entering, will ensure or will be certain that their lives are safe, that they move from one point to the other. The ferry services is no more there. And the only thing left is the small speedboats without life jacket, and in the course of crossing, they get drowned, and so many people die. So this motion, Mr. President, is very, very important and needs urgent attention. I want to strongly support all the prayers as stated in this motion, that Julius Berger should be mobilized to return back to site, and when they get back, they should be serious. This festive period, the Christmas period, Cross River State, normally they have a festival, the Christmas festival, that people will travel from neighboring states to attend. That is going to be affected, and the economy of the area is also affected. I so support. Thank you.
Is there anybody against the motion? We'll go to the prayers. Urge the federal government to immediately mandate Julius Berger to, as a matter of economic emergency, resume the rehabilitation and dualization of the Calabar-Itu Federal Highway. Those in favor of prayer 1 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 2, fund the project in a meaningful manner as to accelerate commitment on the part of Julius Berger and ensure speedy completion of the project. Those in favor of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. And prayer 3, observe a minute's silence in honor of those who have already lost their lives in the ocean pathway of Calabar and Oron. Those in favor of prayer 3 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. 1 minute silence. May the souls of our departed compatriots rest in perfect peace. Amen. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the seventh order of the day is a motion standing in the name of distinguished Senator Issa Jibrin on the urgent need for the rehabilitation of Itobe Ajakuta Road in Kogi State. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Issa Jibrin to move the motion.
Distinguished Senator Issa Jibrin Echecho.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, I am Issa Jibrin, representing the very good people of Kogi East. Mr. President, this motion appreciates the fact that FEMA has financial challenges, but only calling for a palliative measure on a portion of a major federal highway in Kogi State with extremely high traffic. The Senate notes that Itobe Ajakuta Road in Kogi State is a major route for commuters and motorists, in particular from southeast, part of north central, and Kogi East to Abuja and other parts of the north. Worried that a portion of this road, covering about 5 kilometers, has deteriorated so much so that commuters and motorists spend about 2 hours on this portion. Further worried that apart from various degrees of accidents on the road, there are increasing cases of robbery, attacks, and kidnapping, as the vehicles must descend to the lowest possible speed limit to navigate the road. Concerned that with the temporary closure of Enugu International Airport, many Southeasterners are compelled to use the route to and from Abuja, and believes that an immediate palliative measure through the use of laterites and other quick fix will assist to provide temporary succor while awaiting complete restructuring of the road by the Federal Ministry of Transportation. Accordingly resolves to call on the Federal Roads Maintenance Agency, FEMA, to commence immediate palliative work on the road. Thank you, Mr. President.
Former Comrade Smart Adeni.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, we are still very much in the struggle of the people. Mr. President, I rise to support this motion and to say, Mr. President, that it will be to Ajakuta is a federal government road, but more importantly, Mr. President, it's a trunk A road. This is a road that leads to about 9 states of the Federation, talking about the South, South, and Southeast, and some parts of the North Central. Therefore, it is a road that is important towards the acceleration of social economic activities of our country. Mr. President, let me quickly say that I think not quite long, the federal government assisted our state government to make some refund of money spent on some of the federal roads. What was given to Kogi State government was what had been outstanding for some years past. But I must say, Mr. President, that Kogi State is having about 9 states bordering it, all these states with trunk A roads. So Kogi State government continue to spend money in maintaining federal government roads. It is on this, Mr. President, I want to especially appeal to my colleagues, and indeed to yours, humble self, that efforts should be made to take a critical look at the location of our states. Kogi is having 9 states bordering it with major highway roads. Now, when Nigeria travel across this road, it is assumed to be part of Kogi State, but these are federal government roads. So our state government continue to spend huge sum of money in maintaining federal government roads. This road in particular has been maintained twice or so by Kogi State government. But the heavy traffic on the Itobe to Ajakuta road can only be compared to maybe Lagos-Ibadan expressway. So it's a serious problem for our state, and indeed for all Nigerians. Because our people from the southeast, south, that is road that is shorter to their route. So it is a very important road. I want to know how much was made available for road rehabilitation and especially these federal government trunking roads. But I think the time has come, Mr. President, for us to look at the issue of federal government road holistically. If the federal government will find it difficult to maintain these roads, maybe something should be worked out so that the state government could know that it is their responsibility. If that will not work, Mr. President, I think it's not out of place if we start looking at how to take a major step in involving private PPP to maintain this federal government roads. Because for those of us from Kogi State, it is compelling for our government to keep on maintaining the federal government road. These are things we see every day. The 10 billion naira that was recently granted it's not just enough looking at what has been done in the last 8 months by this present government in Kogi State. Because we see them, and my colleague, when he discussed this matter with me, I told him it's something that all of us should support. So I want to plead with my colleagues and your humble self to do all that you can to assist us and assist the country. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Akubu Aseni.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, Yakubu Oseni is the name.
I think your mic and your phone, sorry.
Yakubu Oseni from Kogi Central, Kogi State. In support of this motion, I just want to quickly add a little issue that has not been there. I want to plead this Senate to kindly help us tell them, particularly during this period of festive period, to make sure that the little portions that are motorable were barricaded by abandoned equipment of the companies that were maintaining it before, so that during this period our neighbors traveling to the east and south can have a smooth pending when this palliative measure could be done. I think that's just what I want to add, so that we can have smooth ride during this Yuletide. Thank you.
Is there anybody against the motion? We'll go to the prayer. Accordingly, resolves to call on the Federal Roads Maintenance Agency, FEMA, to commence immediate palliative work on the road. Those in favor of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, having come to the conclusion of the proceedings on today's order paper, I move that the Senate do adjourn to Wednesday, 18th December 2019 at 10 a.m. from.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the prayer that this Senate do adjourn till tomorrow, Wednesday, 18th day of December 2019 at 10 a.m. from say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The Senate is hereby adjourned till tomorrow, Wednesday, the 18th day of December 2019 at 10 a.m. prompt.